Hey, what's going on, Game Leapers? This is Eggs, and in today's video, we're going to go through the most broken champions for patch 12.19 because some of the changes got released on Twitter, so these are our predictions for next patch, and it would be a wise idea if you fancy playing any of these champions to learn them in 12.18, so when 12.19 rolls around, you can dominate. But to learn these champions, guys, and any champion in the game, the best thing you can do is to head on over to our website at GameLeap.com, link down below in the description and comment section, because we have thousands of videos. These might be champion courses, guides, high level analyses that are going to teach you how to play like the best. So get that exclusive access to our massive library of content by signing up, and let's get into the countdown. Now we'll go through the top laners first of all, and there are 3 of these. Now the first of these shouldn't really need much explaining. This is Aatrox with Eclipse, and because Aatrox nor Eclipse are getting nerfed in 12.19, Aatrox has to be on the countdown with a serrated Dirk and then Eclipse because of the armor penetration. Even the Omnivamp is really useful because that actually got nerfed in your kit a few patches ago, kind of makes up for it. So this combination, Aatrox and Eclipse, it is one of the deadliest on the Rift and will continue to be so in 12.19. Now, next top laner we've got to talk about, this is Garen. And honestly, for Garen in 12.19, it sounds super interesting because you're actually getting buffed. Now, I don't know why, because Garen is a very strong champion at the moment, but what's happening for Garen is that you're just getting more crit in your judgment, so your E, the ability where you spin around, and you'll be maxing this first, of course. So the fact you're getting more crit, you can actually make use of it. You might be like, but Garen doesn't really build crit. Well, think about it. Mortal Reminder has crit, and you can even opt for something like maybe Phantom Dancer after that, which is 40% crit, and then finishing that off with an Infinity Edge. Now, this build is a very Chad way of playing Garen, and I'd really recommend doing it if you are super fed and just snowballing, because you will be one-shotting everyone at this point. So very intriguing, yet maybe puzzling buff to Garen, but that's what's going to happen in 12.19, guys, so watch out for the gas. Now, the last top laner, if you don't want to play Aatrox or Garen, then I'd highly recommend playing Set, because of the Set buffs recently, some more attack damage in your W, and of course, a bigger slow in your face breaker, so 70%. This is huge, because in the top lane, most champions you play against, right, are going to be melee champions, so they will be very accessible, therefore you can make even more use of this slow. And a bit like Garen, Set was good even before the buffs, in the majority of elos that is, and because of the W and the E buff, Set has become even stronger, and just like Aatrox, he is not getting nerfed at all in 12.19, so Set rounds out the top laners. Now heading to the mid lane, we have 3 champions here. Now 2 of these, Vex and Zed, they've been on this video before, right, for 12.18, 12.17, really ever since Zed got buffed, so his E's energy cost going down by 10, and also for Vex, her Q getting more AP, so as you start getting more items in the mid to late game, your Q dealing more damage, this is very nice, and of course your Q's cooldown going down to 4 seconds at level 9 or 5 points in your Q. This means that for Vex, her wave clear, her poke, it is just insane, and for Zed, because of the energy cost going down, you can spam your Shadow Slash a bit more often. But I also think for Zed, the Scorch buff, and the fact that you start with 3 health potions, you're going to out-sustain pretty much every other champion in the mid lane, so they have to be very, very careful, and honestly just play perfectly not to give you a chance to snowball out of control. So Zed and Vex are the first 2 mid laners. What about the last one then? Because this is kind of like a new inclusion. This is Syndra, and if you guys watched our last couple of videos where I detailed all of these Syndra changes, you will know how bonkers some of these sound. So the first change, and probably last change you need to hear about, is that her ultimate in 12.19, if it stays like it is going to execute champions when they have less than 15% of their max HP. 15%. So I said in our previous videos, this isn't 5% or 10% or 7.5%, 15%. That enemy champion just dies. Doesn't even matter how many spheres you have around you, you just press R, they insta-die. So that honestly sounds like the most busted change of all time. But what's also happening for Syndra is that your E, so Scatter of the Weak, the actual cone radius, if you will, is getting bigger. So this makes it more reliable and consistent, and just more friendly to, let's just say, less experienced Syndra players. So it'll be easier to play her, and these 2 changes will definitely spike her win rate. And the final change I just want to point out for Syndra is that your Q, when you actually reach the required number of passive stacks, you can have 2 charges of your Dark Sphere. So a bit like an Amumu Bandage Toss or Rumble's Electro Harpoon, you get 2 charges, and this will be separated by a 1.25 second cooldown. So this was 1 second, but Riot changed it today to 1.25 seconds. Still not really that big, because you can use a Q, and if an enemy champion is CC'd for longer than 1.25 seconds, you can probably just kill them with 2 Qs. You don't really have to do much else. So Syndra, especially especially in the mid to late game when she get your passive stacks and a lot of damage to really make use of your 2 Dark Spheres. I think she could even be the best champion in the game. Let me know, guys, in the comment section if you have any thoughts on this. But Syndra, the other mid laner. Now, heading to the jungle, just like the mid and top lane, we have 3 champions to discuss, and I don't really want to discuss 2 of these being Bel'Veth and Master Yi. Ever since Riot buffed these 2 champions' attack range by 50, well, let's just say they haven't really been balanced. They have been killing it in every single elo. They're some of the most banned champions in the game because there really is no counterplay. To Master Yi, he can now choose where he ends up after his Alpha Strike. How on earth is that healthy or interactive? And for Bel'Veth, well, she's just Bel'Veth, an 8-ly broken champion who, despite copping a lot of nerfs, is still performing at a very high level. But let's just say you do have some self-respect, and you don't want to play Bel'Veth or Master Yi to inflate your elo, then playing Fiddlesticks, honestly, is probably the next best option, because Fiddlesticks, ever since his Crowstorm's damage got buffed, so the base damage, the AP ratio, and also his Q's Fear duration, these have pushed Fiddlesticks into S+ tier territory. But just remember, guys, if you do play Fiddlesticks, your Crowstorm is everything. Without it, you really are just a pile of sticks. So make sure you're operating in Fog of War. Try to use your control wards and your effigies, your sweepers, as best as possible so you can flank the enemy team and hit them when they are least expecting it. That is when you are at your deadliest and at your best. Now, heading down to the bot lane, the 3 best AD carries. And all 3 of these AD carries are not getting changed in 12-19. And because they're already strong in 12-18, well, that's just going to continue to be the case, right? So the first of these, this is Draven. And even though Draven's Q's base damage got nerfed a few patches ago, hasn't really changed anything. Because in terms of actually dominating the bot lane and winning lane and snowballing, Draven honestly is probably the best at this. Also, the fact that lots of other AD carries at the moment, not even at the moment, just in Season 12 generally speaking, picking Draven, you just automatically know that you're probably, if not always, going to win the laning phase, and if you can get a couple of kills so you cash in your passive stacks, you can easily 1v9. But one champion Draven does struggle against. This is Miss Fortune. And I know what you're saying, Miss Fortune got nerfed in 12-18, oh my goodness, how can she be a broken champion for 12-19? Well, her win rate hasn't really gone down by that much, guys. And just like I said for Draven, all the other AD carries, well, they're not exactly really strong. Like, can you name me a standout AD carry who everyone is picking? You can't really do it. And if there was one, well, Miss Fortune still might be that AD carry. Because of the changes that recently came in, so it's pushing you more towards like a Kraken Slayer press the attack setup with a Qmax, she is still boasting very high win rates, and it's also really useful because Miss Fortune, well, she is kind of an easy champion to pilot. Also, your ultimate, especially in lower elos, can be devastating. All you have to do is press R, and sometimes you just insta-win team fights, so if you don't want to play Draven, I think Miss Fortune is your next best bet. But let's say you want to play an AD carry who might even be more aggressive than these two, then picking Samira, the ultimate counter pick AD carry, is a very wise choice. She does amazing into Draven, she does well into Miss Fortune because she can block a lot of her stuff, she just does really well into any champion who relies on projectiles or skill shots. So that's a lot of AD carries, right? And because of the buffs to Samira earlier in the season, so to her scaling, her AD, and also to her Q's damage, remember, because you're building lifesteal in the form of shield bow, you'll be lifestealing more because you are dealing more damage in the mid to late game. This is so valuable. Just make sure, guys, to get the full potential out of Samira, you're picking Samira when you do have CC on your team, right? Because you want to activate your passive, and it's really good, obviously, with champions, let's say, Sejuani or Jarvan. You don't really want to be picking Samira if you've got like 2 assassins and a top laner who you're probably not going to see much of during a game, but if you can pick her when you have supports like Blitzcrank, when you have supports like Pyke, Alistar, these type of champions, you will know exactly why Samira is on this countdown. Now, speaking of those supports, well, Blitzcrank is actually one of them who's getting a lot of changes in 12-19. So your W's attack speed is going up, even though the cooldown might be longer. Your E is getting changed as well, but here's the thing, guys. Ever since Riot gave you 100 base damage at rank 1, so even at level 1 when you have your rocket grab, that boosted Blitz's win rate by heaps. And we should also mention the fact that your ultimate also has more base damage, so when you do land that rocket grab, remember, you are a one-shot champion. You land one ability, that target, that enemy champion goes boom, right? So if you can kind of synergize Blitzcrank with another all-in champion in the bot lane like Samira, perfect. You can catch out enemies who make mistakes, and because, well, in the majority of elos, lots of bot laners are going to make mistakes, playing Blitzcrank, you can pick them off better than anyone. But one champion who's easier to play than Blitzcrank, and her win rate is a lot higher as well, this is Janna. Now, even though Janna got nerfed like 3-4 times in the last few patches, a bit like Bel'Veth, she is still boasting like a 52-53% win rate, and I'm kind of surprised. I'm not calling for nerfs, but I am kind of surprised that she hasn't been nerfed even more, because with Glacial and the new Q she has, which travels at the speed of light, and it's very, very hard hard to dodge, and not to mention that she's one of the best peeling supports in the game. So if you're playing a champion who wants to dive in there, diving into a Janna, it's really frustrating. It feels as if you can never do anything because, well, the enemy champions around a Janna, they're just impossible to kill because of her amazing peel. But the last champion, guys, on this countdown and the last support, if you want to dominate the laning phase with a bit of range, so you're not playing an all-in champion like Blitzcrank, then Zyra could be the best of the rest. And because of the buff to Zyra a couple of patches ago, so your E, the actual animation, you're not locked into that animation for as long. This means that when you use your E, you can catch up to the enemy champions you snare with your grasping roots. If you're using it to escape, right, you can escape more often. So pretty much this change equates to more kills and less deaths. And because of the recent-ish changes to sustain in League of Legends, right, because there is less of it, health potions, refills, they're not giving as much HP back as they were before, so a poke champion in the bot lane, a catchy champion like Zyra, is going to froth these a lot more than anyone else. Especially when you run something like Comet and the buff Scorch from the same patch, Zyra can really make use of these, which is what we're seeing with her high win rate in every single elo. So guys, those were the 15 most OP champions for 12-19. These are of course predictions, so we will update you when the actual patch comes out on the real 15 most broken, I guess. But if you did enjoy this countdown, please let us know by leaving a like down below. And until our next season 12 video, this has been a peace.